an NBA champion, an 11-year NBA vet, a first-team All-Pac-10er, Celtics analyst for NBC Sports Boston, an Odyssey NBA insider, and I do consider him a good friend of the program. He is Brian Scalabrine. Scal, good to have you back. How are you?
I'm good, Jim. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, dude. 4 games into the Eastern Conference Finals, Scal. This has been one of the weirdest, ugliest series I've seen in a long, long time. You would think, Brian, that a 2-2 series would be competitive, but almost none of the 4 games have been. How do you explain what's going on?
You know, it is hard to explain. I will say that the game of the NBA has changed a little bit. You know, like a long time ago, when a team would go on a run, you would give the ball to your best player, and your best player would, quote-unquote, try to save you. I think that that's a mistake nowadays. And when you look at, like, the Golden State Warriors and the way that they play, it doesn't matter what the score is. Up 10, up 20, down 10, down 20. Those guys are going to do the same thing. And I feel like both these teams, and really especially the Celtics, when Miami goes on a run, I feel like they downshift a little bit, try to play controlled basketball, which leads to more turnovers, which leads to a bigger run. And I think they need to figure out how to get out of that. I think Game 4 gave them a lot of confidence and believe that they could play a little bit faster. They could put the Heat in rotation. They could get some things going. But I don't like the fact that it's not 90s anymore where you walk the ball up in the playoff. That doesn't work with the physicality kind of back in the game and guys guarding at a high level one-on-one. I'd like to see when teams are down to just keep your foot on the gas, let that ball fly around. I think you'll start these runs, these 39 to 15 quarters will go away if teams will play a lot faster.
Scal, this is something I really like about you. I've always appreciated the fact that you had a really nice career and you were a really nice player, but what you don't do is sit around talking about how the game was so much better when you played or explain the game through that lens like when I played the game. I mean, it's not like you've been retired for a long time. What is the biggest difference then overall between the game now versus when you played?
Yeah, you know, a skill level. It's true, and it's across the board. You know, like even right now, I'm sure you maybe have asked a question to somebody about injuries. Well, I know a long time ago there was 3 guys on the court that couldn't play a lick. They could shoot, but they couldn't break you down. Their skill level wasn't at a high level. They couldn't shoot the ball from 3 and drive to the paint. So think about that from a defensive standpoint. You got an ailing knee or a sore ankle, you're going to get exposed nowadays because the skill level is absolutely off the chart. The decision-making, like the passing and everything like that is off the chart. So it's almost better to sit out if you're going to be out there limping around. But let's go back to the 90s. Like the game was slow, and when a game is slow, if you got an ailing knee, you can kind of like sit down, guard, not have to move that much. Nowadays, in rotation, you're going to be tested, and I think a lot of these guys think, well, why would I want 2 games where I'm below average, where I could sit out, someone else can play, and they could be at a high level, and then another guy, then I can come back the following day and be a whole lot better. So the game is so different now. It's so much faster. You have to cover so much more ground than you used to back in the day. Helping a guy on a drive and building out to a knockdown shooter who then could also deck the ball and drive you, that's not easy to do. And if you're sore back, sore knee, sore ankle, it's going to be tough for you to be out there.
Brian Scalabrine is joining us. Scal, I want to ask you about Al Horford, who had 13 rebounds, 5 points, 4 blocks, and 3 assists last night. As somebody who knows this team really well, how important is Horford to what they do, both offensively and defensively?
Well, defensively, he can guard all positions. He does a great job of, like you saw him last round against the great Giannis Antetokounmpo. He did a great job at times. I mean, Giannis is a beast. But, like, even to be able to guard a guy like that and also to guard a guy like Kyle Lowry, the versatility is amazing. I think, we're seeing that a little bit from Draymond Green over in Golden State. And the really good teams are versatile defensively. So he provides that. You don't have to coach around him. You don't have to do things defensively for a guy who's slow of foot. And then offensively, he's a great connector. If the court is 50 feet wide, if you want to use the whole court and put teams in rotation, Al Horford's the kind of guy that knows how to do that. And the fact that he can make a shot, so you have to respect that. He's good at getting the guys the ball when they need it. Think of a point center, point forward type of player out there. And he just makes it makes the Miami Heat tough to match up with when Al Horford's moving that ball side to side. The man took 2 shots yesterday, and he was one of the most important players on the floor.
Brian Scalabrine is joining us. You mentioned Draymond Green. I thought you said something really interesting about Draymond Green recently. You said you were shocked the first time you saw him run a shell drill. What was it that you saw that stunned you so much? What makes him special in that regard?
Yeah, he's made me a better analyst from that standpoint. Like I was coaching him at the time, but everything now in the NBA is about the gather. I know it's really hard to see if you're watching TV, but when you're there, it's your ability to make a decision when the guy is picking up the ball. When a guy picks up the ball to shoot, when a guy picks up the ball to pass. That's why it's important, for guards to be able to make one-hand passes, because you can't decipher when a guy is doing that. Well, Draymond Green was moving faster than everybody else. His ability and his brain and his eyes to read the gather. A guy is going to shoot on this play. A guy is going to pass. So many other times, a guy has to wait before the ball is out of the guy's hands before he starts rotation. And at this point, with the shooting and the skill level that I just mentioned earlier, you're dead in the water. If you're not moving before the gather and you're not being tricked by these guards who are ultra crafty, you're going to be a step behind. And I wouldn't call him quick. He's not elite quickness or athleticism. He just moves faster than everybody else. And I'm not comparing Draymond Green to Larry Bird, but I've never played against Larry Bird, but I talked to old-time players, and old-time players would say, even though Bird was slow, he just moved faster than everybody else. I mean, he's moving before everybody else is moving. So his brain is elite for that. And you know what? It might be for many reasons. It might be because he was a little bit overweight when he was in high school and college, so he had to kind of make up for that. Now he's got himself in incredible shape. And so there's a lot of reasons why a player has to adapt along the way. But Draymond Green, of all the players I've ever been a part of, seen defensively, I've never seen a player read the gather or move the way that he has defensively.
That's actually fascinating. Brian Scalabrine joining us. Scal, it seems to me, you tell me I'm wrong, but if Boston just takes care of the ball, right? If they take care of the ball, they should advance. If that's the case, if you were to look ahead to a Boston-Golden State matchup, is it responsible? Can we do that? And if so, what are your early thoughts on that matchup?
Yeah, I mean, first, you know what, and one thing, Jim, a lot of people think turnovers are bad because they just look at the offense. And I agree. Turnovers are bad. But the Miami Heat forced those turnovers. Let's give Kyle Lowry credit. Where would Kyle Lowry be as an NBA player if he didn't have the hands that he has defensively? The guy's incredible. So I do think the Miami Heat are forcing turnovers. But with that being said, I do 100% agree with you. Celtics keep it around 13 or less turnovers. There's no way the Miami Heat can fabricate enough offense to win. So let's take it one step further. Now, the Celtics defense is amazing. They're good at scrambling. I would say maybe top 2 in the NBA at scrambling out of defensive breakdowns. The difference is a lot of times that's guarding isolation. Think about it. First round, they go against Kevin Durant, who's a big-time isolation player. Now, you're used to guarding that. You go second round, Giannis on the isolation, different than Kevin Durant, but still mostly one-on-one. He's not doing it off of catch and shoot or flying around the three-point line. Now we're in Miami Heat. It's a little bit different, similar to what Golden State does, but Golden State's a whole other animal. You could be a great defensive team like Dallas. Dallas is a great defensive team, guarding isolation, guarding pick and roll. We saw that in the Phoenix Suns series in Game 7. Phoenix couldn't even get into the paint. But the way the Warriors play, flare screens, flip screens, reading, driving, cutting, that's a problem. And that's a problem for most teams in the NBA, and that's the reason why the Warriors are hitting their stride. And I didn't even mention their elite shooting that goes along with that, with Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Otto Porter, Draymond Green moving the basketball, getting other guys involved, Andrew Wiggins knocking down threes. So as of right now, I love my Celtics, but I do think the Golden State Warriors are a tougher matchup for the Celtics. I think what the Warriors do great is really hard for the Celtics to match up with and still be that elite defensive team, even though historically in the last 5 years, even when they had Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, historically the Celtics have done a really good job of guarding all the cuts and guarding all the shooting of the Warriors. Right now, as I see it, I'm going to lean towards Golden State with experience and that motion offense. It's really difficult to match up with.
Fair enough. Scott, one last thought. So where does that leave us tonight? Do you think that with a boot on their throat, Golden State's going to finish this thing and Dallas is already done? Or do you think Dallas rises up, shows some pride and heart and grit and finds a way to at least extend this thing so they don't get swept?
Yeah, so I think with Dallas, they play better with when they're free flowing, right? It's not Luka. Luka, like he can have the whole world on his shoulders and he's going to play great. The role players, I think they struggle a little bit with pressure. And when they're playing good, they're going to win. So even the one game that the Warriors came back in, Dallas sort of like lost their mojo, really made shots in the first half, didn't make shots. So I'm guessing tonight Dallas plays wild. They play free. They want to win. Like they have that attitude. Luka wants to win. Luka in his mind thinks that he can bring them back. I think they win tonight, but end up ultimately losing in the gentleman's sweep in Golden State for Game 5.
He's an NBA champion, an 11-year NBA vet, a first-team All-Pac-10er, Celtics analyst at NBC Sports Boston, Odyssey NBA insider, and frankly, so good at what he does and so great the last time he was on. We had to bring him back as quickly as possible. Scout, thanks so much for doing that. Always great to have you on the show, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I'll talk to you during the finals.
You're the ball, dude. I hope so. You're the best.